All right, all right. We're here live today for carrying on with our 8 steps to personal transformation. And before we get started, I'm just going to take care of a few little admin things on my end over here. If this is your first time coming into this live today, welcome. And maybe you're watching it on replay, which most people likely are. And for those of you that are watching on replay, this live is also available in my live little tab that you'll find, the live tab. So you can watch all the other streams that I've done so far on this topic. This is my 4th one. So we're going to get started. I see there's a few people that have come into the live so far, so welcome. If you want to join the chat, that is definitely recommended. And hopefully people can chime in to let me know if there's any technical issues. Most people will let me know if there's any sound problems, if you can't hear me. Hopefully everything's running fine. So I'm going to start today's live, which, it really is very much training, if you will, live coaching, if you will. So as we start and we commence, feel free to enter the chat with any questions or thoughts, because anyone who enters into the chat will be subject to my analysis and feedback. I have, at this point in my life, over 20 years of experience in personal development professionally, helping people professionally with their personal development. And 20 years of being a very keen learner of personal transformation. So I am very intuitive. I do consider myself an expert in human behavior, having worked in the criminal justice system for 20 years. And I also am very much a pattern seeker, if you will. Oh, what's up, Jason? Yeah, hey, I'm taking a big break from social media in general. And so this is where it's at for me, Jason. I hope your YouTube is starting to open up for you as well. Cheers to that. Here we are. It's having a little lemon ginger tea. Let me start to share. When I do these streams, I like to have some visual. Let me scroll all the way up to this document. Here we go. And we're going to be discussing the 8 steps. Well, we're not discussing all 8 steps. Each week I come back to talk to you about one step at a time, because that's how life is, one step at a time. And transformation sure is one step at a time. And the first thing that we talked about in the first live that I did was that you got to have a vision. And sometimes that can be the hardest for people. What is it that you really want? What do you want that you don't already have? I put out a video this week, the fastest way to transformation, the fastest way to transform your life. But first you got to know where it is you're going. What do you want? And that's what I talked about in that video, if you wanted to check that one out. The second thing is you got to address the shadow. You got to address your limiting beliefs. You got to know what is in the way of me having this thing that I want. What is it that's in the way? So knowing the shadow, that it's your ego, let's face it, your ego is holding you back from having this thing. And that ego can be really tricky. I talk about this a lot in the last 2 lives that I've done. A lot. I'm sure we'll be talking about it today again because it's the number one thing that really holds us back from getting what we want. And then last week, I looked at step number 3, which is identifying the gaps in thinking. So when you identify the gaps, this is where, what is it in between this limiting belief of mine and the thinking that I need to embrace and getting there, getting to that place. And today we're going to talk about connecting to your feelings. That's going to be the spot that we're going to touch on today. Because feelings is one of those things that sometimes people ignore, is the feelings, isn't it? So let's just take a moment to connect with some feelings. And this is something that I like to do whenever I start my one-on-one coaching sessions. So what I want you to do is to just sit, okay? I'm sure you're already sitting. And sit with the intention to pay attention. And pay attention to yourself. Okay, and I want you to just start by taking some breaths. And as you breathe, you're going to notice what's happening to your body. You're going to notice how it is that you breathe. Do you breathe with your belly? Do you notice that your belly is expanding and contracting as you breathe? Or when you're breathing, do you notice more in your chest is rising? Do you notice that expansion more so? Or do you feel something totally different when you're focusing on your breath? So I want you to take your hand and place it on your heart center. Right where that beating heart is of yours, and hopefully you can feel it in there. As you take a few breaths and close your eyes. And I want you to tune into 4 feelings that you're having. Can you identify 4 feelings? And sometimes you might be able to tune into a physical feeling, like you're feeling cold, or you're feeling tired, or you're feeling exhausted. But search deeper into your heart. These are the feelings that I want you to tune into. These are the emotions. Are you feeling calm? Are you feeling peaceful? Are you feeling serene? Maybe you're feeling anxious. Maybe you're feeling irritated. Maybe you're feeling frustrated. Maybe you're feeling angry. Maybe you're feeling out of control. Maybe you're feeling confused. So many feelings to be had. And the key is to tune into 4 of them. Because sometimes we'll find 1, we'll find 2, maybe we'll find 3, and then we'll stop. But I want you to just search for one more feeling that's in there. And if you'd care to share in the chat what those feelings were, I'd love to hear from you. What are you feeling today? Oh, lemon ginger tea. That is gorgeous. You know, I feel quite content and peaceful and calm and hopeful and grateful. I'm not quite sitting with any contrasting feelings right now, personally. We got some restlessness. Thanks for joining the chat, follow 33 and Cam Demoiselle, if you're still here. Thank you for tuning in to listen. And we're just starting off today's live by tuning into our feelings. Tuning into our feelings, because that's going to be what we're talking about in today's live, is identifying, connecting to our feelings. You probably want to see what those other ones are that are under there after we do this whole feelings thing. What happens next? Well, then we got to connect to our personal needs. And then we connect to what our boundaries are from that. That informs us what boundaries we need to set for ourselves. And from there, we get to expand ourself and our worldview by the boundaries that we've established. And finally, in our road to personal transformation, we reflect. We validate the hard work that we just took ourselves through, because this is a lot of stuff. Having, having the vision sometimes can be the hardest step to begin with. Sometimes we don't know where it is we're going. We're just in the shadow. So I'm going to come back to the feelings I was just talking about, and I'm going to show you the feelings wheel. I don't know if you guys have seen this feelings wheel before. I'm going to take off my little thing here so it's not blocking your view. And as you are sitting there today, you have a possibility of experiencing so many feelings. Look at them all. And I'll tell you that that's not even half of them. Sometimes I'll chat with people and they'll check in with me and they'll tell me how they feel. And we'll say, okay, let's find that feeling on the feelings wheel. And it's not there. Like, Jason, you've got restlessness. Do we see restlessness anywhere on this? Feeling restless. It might be a part of surprise, feeling restless, not sure what other feeling you would attach it to, or feeling worried restless or anxious restless. But what you see in the center are the core emotions. And personally, I don't quite consider anger a core emotion. I don't consider it a primary emotion. Because anger usually results from one of the other emotions not being tended to. So anger is a secondary emotion. A lot of people would consider it that way. Uni on verse is feeling neutral. Yeah. It's a neutral place. And sometimes for neutral, we can feel content. It can be a joyous place to find yourself. Worried, anxious, yeah. So it's very interesting because when we go to look at what the core emotion is for these things, if you're feeling a little restless, there might be some fear. If you're feeling a little resentful, there might be some anger. If you're feeling a little suffering or isolated, there might be some sadness. If you're feeling powerless or neglected, that could also be sadness. If you're feeling relieved, that could be love. If you're feeling longing, that could also be love. I don't know why I've never noticed longing on there before. Because many will say that longing could, like, in my opinion, longing could be a fear. Longing for some could be an anxiousness. You know, it's like this strong desire of something that you don't have. I'm just longing for it. And you see desire is right beside it. And they've connected that to love. I did not make this feelings wheel. I wonder if maybe one day I might redo this feelings wheel, because there's some things that I would change on this. Maybe that'll be a little pastime that I will take up as I go back through all of the check-ins that I've had with clients over the years, as they check in with me about their feelings. You know? Some people check in and they say they're feeling chill. Chill. I'm chill. Just chill. You know? We got to update it. We got to have the right lingo. Welcome, Bruce, to the chat. Thanks for tuning in. So yeah, the feelings wheel is something else there. And that desire and longing, I tell you, it can lead to a love based on desire and longing, and it might not be the best love that you want. That's all I have to say about that. Mama Nova, welcome to the chat. So as we go through the 8 steps of personal transformation, connecting to your emotional state is a very important thing to do. And what I've learned over the years is that some people have a great difficulty tuning into their emotions. That's why just moments ago I asked you to just sit for a moment with the intention of paying attention to yourself, putting your hand on your heart. Because when you do that, when you place your physical hand on your heart, you're creating a physical connection to your body. It's like waking it up. And especially when you put it on that heart center, maybe you give it a little rub, you know, it feels really nice. If you ever just need a little comfort for yourself, just do that. Okay? Sometimes we can even do what they call a butterfly hug, where you tap your hands on, side to side, bilateral movement. It like replicates the heartbeat. It really calms the nervous system down a great bunch. You know, and even just rubbing your arms is really nice. Okay, if you're somebody who spends a lot of time alone and you don't get a lot of affection, this is something that you need to just connect with yourself. Say, hey, tell yourself that you love yourself and that you're here. And how are we feeling today? How are we feeling? You just spoke to what I just texted. Yeah, Mama Nova, I love that. I love it, right? We're connected over here. So this is something you can do in the morning. This is something you can do before you go to bed. This is something you can do midday. Just take a moment to connect. Where are we today? How are we feeling today? And even if you just come up with 1, 2, 3, 4 is awesome. If you just stop at 1, you limit yourself in your capability of feeling. Because there's more. There's more that's happening within you. You're not just anxious today. There's something else in there too. Oh, I'm also hopeful. I also feel some peace, and I feel overwhelmed. Interesting. You can feel peace and overwhelmed at the same time? Yeah, you can feel whatever you want to feel. Don't limit yourself. We really want to have a great emotional vocabulary, and we also want to be able to really hold space for our emotions. Holding space for our emotions is what allows us to get through on this personal transformational journey, I tell you. Okay? Because if you're not holding space for your feelings, no one else is. and they're getting trapped up in there. They're getting trapped, and we need to release them. And sometimes they can be released simply by just acknowledging them and giving them space to be heard. Oh, we got this today. Okay. Do we know why we have this feeling today? No, I have no clue. Okay, well, so be it. We'll just take note that you have this within you today. We don't always have to go searching for the why. We can be okay to not know why. But we could say, all right, well, we have this feeling. What do I think I need? What is it that I need? Maybe I need to lay down. Maybe I need to go for a walk. Maybe I need to get some work done. Maybe I need to eat something. Maybe I need to call someone. Maybe I need to just sit and continue in a state of nothingness and peace and stillness and contemplation. Maybe I want to journal. Maybe I just need to get back to work and thank myself for checking in. And we'll check in again later. Okay, this is what we call emotional availability to ourselves, being emotionally available. You know, when you want a relationship with someone who's emotionally available and you want them to ask you how your day was and genuinely care and, be ready to hear the good feelings and the not so good feelings and not push them away or tell you, hey, well, at least, you still got a roof over your head. Right? You know how you want someone in your life that's like that? You have to be that person to yourself too. Okay, you got to be that person. And you might need to practice being that person who is emotionally available to yourself. Now, once we've got a little bit of familiarity with our feelings and our emotions, and like I said, some of us have difficulty identifying emotions. A lot of neurodiverse people who are neurodivergent, I think the term is dyspraxia. Let me just do a little double check here. I think it's dyspraxia, or is it unable to identify feelings. Alexithymia. Yes, that's the one. There's so many terms within the neurodivergent subheadings, Alexithymia. I'll put it in the chat here. If you have this, it's an inability to identify your own emotions. And there's various reasons why. And I think it's why sometimes they'll say that people who have autism are unable to experience empathy. They can't show empathy. But we know now that that is a complete myth. We know that people who have autism or even ADHD, anyone who's neurodivergent, they're absolutely capable of experiencing empathy and displaying empathy, but it might not come across in the way that you're used to. It's not that they don't have the capacity to feel empathy. You might just not see it. You might not see them express it, but it doesn't mean they're not feeling it inside. And so that's where this emotional barrier might exist, where it's difficult for them to express their feelings. It's not that they don't have them. It's just difficult to put them into words. And so that's why the feelings wheel can be really handy. You can see the feeling and be like, oh, well, maybe it's this. And it often just takes some practice because it's not something that someone ever goes to see a therapist for, to say, yeah, I or maybe they do, because I had someone come to my coaching program because they wanted to be able to feel their feelings. And the truth was that I discovered that they were very well at feeling their feelings. They had no problem feeling their feelings. We would do a check-in together and they would rhyme off 4 feelings right away. They would be able to tell me how they were feeling. But the thing was that they didn't feel validated in those emotions. They didn't think they were allowed to feel those feelings. And something happened along the way where they totally removed their permission to feel anything. Whatever they felt was wrong. And this can be, as a result of being invalidated for many years of your life. Anytime you've had an emotional response to something and somebody invalidated it, it really makes you question whether your feelings are valid or not. You can imagine how your emotional maturity, how your emotional availability to yourself in this world is being challenged based on other people challenging how you feel. No, you don't feel that way. Don't feel that way. Stop feeling that way. I don't feel that way. You shouldn't feel that way. Okay, well then I don't know about my feelings at all. I can't really even tune into them anymore. I've become numb to them because apparently they're a bad thing. Welcome to the live, Jamie and MB and Rob. Thanks for coming into the chat. What we're talking about today is step 4 of personal transformation. And this is to connect with your feelings, identify your inner child wounds. Yeah, the inner child, they're in there. A lot of us have some resistance to connecting with our inner child. And I created a inner child. I wonder, how can I make this bigger? Let me see if I can make this one bigger. What will happen if I go like this? How does it show up? It's a little better. All right, I'm gonna scroll to the wheel that I made. I was saying how I wanted to make another wheel, a feelings wheel. Well, this one is an inner child wheel. I guess I gotta make it smaller because it doesn't fit the whole screen. Inner child wheel. I'm gonna make it even a little smaller now. Okay, there we go. Those of you that don't know me over on the social medias, Empathic Coach is where that's my IG handle, Empathic Coach is where I first shared this wheel. And I hope it's okay for you guys to see it. I have another mode of sharing this, which I'll probably get into. And if you have any questions at any time, please, I am not on my own agenda over here. If you're listening to the live today and you got some questions that you want to throw out there, hey, I'm all for being interrupted in my monologue over here. So please do. Yes. All right, Bruce. Bruce talking about the shyness. And the shyness, I know for me, I'll speak for myself. I know I'm not shy. Like, people would call me shy. I would even call myself shy. But at the bottom of it, I'm not a shy person. I'm not shy to go up and talk to someone or say something. It's a preference. I have a preference. I would prefer to be an observer. It's not that I'm shy. I just prefer to observe and to watch. I love being an observer and a watcher. sometimes more so than interacting. I don't always feel the need to interact. My interaction is through my observation. You know, I'm like a fly on the wall. Oh, whenever someone would say, if you could have any magical power, it would always be like to be that fly on the wall, to just eavesdrop, to just like, I love to people watch and just be amongst the things that are happening without having to participate in the things that are happening directly. I like to vicariously, just live a little vicariously through people's experiences. Especially at this age now, because I've had a bunch of experiences of my own that, I'm good. I can be content to sit back and watch others. Maybe you guys feel the same way, right? But that shyness, that lack of eye contact sometimes, when you're a very highly sensitive person, there is a lot of energy that can be shared by when you look at something. Our eye contact, when we are observing something or looking at something, is very intense. Sometimes we might hear people saying, I'm feeling intimidated by you because of how intensely you're looking at someone. Because we're just taking in their whole person. We're listening with our eyes. And so sometimes, as a way to preserve energy, you might have to break that eye contact, to just recalibrate your energy again before you can connect. I wonder if you guys relate to that. I bet you do. If you follow me, then I'm sure we're very much on the same page. But yeah, don't think that because someone's not making eye contact with you that means they're lying to you. No, they're probably trying to preserve their energy. That's what they're doing. And don't think that if somebody is looking left, sometimes people would say, you looked left, that means you lied. No, that's how I access information. As a neurodivergent people, you will see us often looking. And my left eye is my dominant eye. So I will always look to the left. If I am sitting in a classroom, I will want to go into the back right-hand corner so that my left eye dominant is having like the whole view. Whenever I take dance classes, I would always choose to be on the right so that I could see with my left eye. I don't know. I just realized that for myself this year, actually, that we have a dominant eye. Oh, if you just pay attention to that, you'll notice for yourself. It's an interesting thing, especially if you're a highly sensitive person. You can really tune into which eye is seeing the most. And it could be the side that you look up to when you think, if you're like me anyway. So let's get into these inner child wounds, okay? Because this one just looks a little bit too small, I feel like, for people to see. So I've broken it up. Into these separate wounds. It's still a little small, but maybe, let me see how, if I make it bigger, how it will go. I go like this. The first one we're going to look at is injustice. Man, why did I put this one first? Because this one is a big one. Injustice wound. Oh, I wrote the most for this one. You'll see the other ones that will come up. I don't have as much to say. I was just speaking to someone today who came into my coaching program. And right off the bat, I could hear from what she was saying that she had an injustice wound. Because anyone that was being treated unfairly or wasn't given fair treatment, she always felt a need to stand up to them. She always had a need to come in and make sure things were correct. She always has a need to follow rules, people would tell her, that she was always a rule follower. And so the injustice wound, you might hear yourself saying, I don't deserve to be treated fairly. Now, that is like an area that you would have to really dig into deeply. Something in there is telling you you don't deserve fair treatment because you haven't been treated fairly. And the feeling of injustice, of like it's not even, if I go back to, I wonder if this feeling is going to be on injustice. I wonder if it would be like an anger, like could be hurt, rejected. Was that revolted? Injustice could be frustrated. Yeah. Injustice could also be a sadness of suffering. Injustice could also be shame or guilt, but I talk about those ones separately. So it's definitely an anger or a sadness, we'll say, for the injustice wound. And so for somebody experiencing that injustice wound, there's a sense that the world isn't fair. And to a certain degree, yeah, that's true. Okay, life isn't fair. We have to come to accept that. But they have a hard time accepting that life isn't fair. Why can't it be? And they will try their hardest to make things be fair. They are always making sure that their actions are always fair. So why can't everyone else behave in the same way? And the causes of this injustice wound, as you see at the top in orange, child poverty, discrimination, racialization, unfairness, or inequality. And they may have also been judged for expressing their emotions, so they're deprived of feeling emotions, like the injustice of not being allowed to feel, of your feelings being invalidated. Like, that's not fair. It's not fair that I can't feel the way I want to feel. So if you have somewhere in your regular vocabulary creeping around somewhere issues of fairness, then you want to look at this injustice wound for sure. Okay. Follow 33. Healing is the moment you realize there never was any trauma. Yeah. It was just your perspective. Yes. Yeah, that's deep. That's deep right there. I get what you're saying. Because once you've healed, there's a saying, there's post-traumatic stress, but following that is post-traumatic growth. Where it's like, no, this actually wasn't trauma. This was the lesson that I had to experience. And you get to that place where you say that wasn't unfair that I had to go through that. That was part of my journey. Yeah, so follow 33. I'm with you on that. I totally know what you mean by it. But in the meantime, before we get to that understanding, we're overcompensating. We're going to go and work in helping professions. We're going to go and want to be the mayor of a city to fix it up. We want to be a therapist, a psychiatrist. We want to, we want to do those helper jobs. We want to be a nurse. We want to be a doctor. We want to be a police officer. We want to go in there. We want to make it right. But we're coming into it from a wounded place. And like that's just how it is. People are coming into their professions, their helping professions, from the injustice wound. I can personally attest to that because I entered into a job as a probation and parole officer. Talk about injustice, right? Christoph, new follower, hello. Thanks for joining the chat. TD, thanks for joining the chat as well. Yes, we come into that, and then we come in with very high standards and perfectionism. So we're in the workplace. We're in the workplace wanting to fix the world through our profession somehow. And it's a heavy load that we're carrying on, this injustice wound. Electric Blue B, joining the chat. Welcome to you too. Another thing that happens in the injustice wound, and it's fine, like there's parts of us that if it wasn't for the injustice wound, I tell you, we would never have reached such high advancements for human rights, for humanity, right? Somebody had to have the injustice wound in order to cure the injustice that was taking place. Sure, it was done from a wounded place, but it doesn't mean that operating from a wounded place isn't going to achieve great things. It absolutely can. Absolutely can. Because for the majority of our lives, we're operating from a wounded place and we're achieving amazing feats, aren't we? Yes. Carl, welcome to the chat, Carl. Glad you just found me and you're on a nonstop binge now. Yes. And welcome to this live, where today we're talking about the 8 steps of personal transformation. And step 4 is connecting with your feelings. So I'm going through all of the inner child wounds. And it's coming from this wheel that I developed. I made this inner child wheel, which has the wounds in the middle. We're talking about all of these wounds right now. We've just started with the injustice wound. And we're going to talk about how we overcompensate for our wounds. And then the outer rim is how to heal it. So of course, we got to talk about how to heal these things too, right? So let me go back to this injustice wound for a moment as we wrap this up, okay? Because there certainly are a lot of layers to this, and it's important for us to understand ourselves, right? We don't want to shame ourselves for these wounds. Like I said, a lot of great things happen from wounded places, don't they? But we want to be aware of it. We want to have the awareness of why we are operating in these ways. And the healing to the injustice wound is to move through the anger, move through the unworthiness, move into self-agency and self-empowerment. When you do that, the work that you do, the helping others, comes from a totally different place. You advocate for others, you advocate for other people's rights from a place of self-respect and dignity, not from a place of anger. And you may have once done that, and you see how far that got, but it can be very exhausting. It can be adding on more layers to your wounds, which is why you just got to be aware that this is the wound you have in place, and how can I make it more productive? How can I heal this wound and then operate from this place of injustice in a different way? Yeah? And accepting that life isn't fair. It's true. So you turn your attention to what you are in control of. Turn your attention to what you are in control of. And for Christoph, saying that this place blows, you know? Well, what doesn't blow? Focus on the things that don't suck. Focus on what doesn't suck. Because there's always going to be things that suck. But if you turn your attention to that place, then you give that place your attention. You don't want to give that place your attention. So give a different place your attention instead. You got to find that place. And sometimes it starts with finding that place in yourself. Okay, so this is that step 4 is connecting with your feelings. I got to identify my own wound that's active right now, that's impeding me on enjoying my life and getting up to the next step of my personal transformation. This has been holding me back. So let's get to the next wound. Let's see what it's guilt. I can see it there. The next one we've got is guilt. Guilt. See how not as long guilt is? The injustice wound is huge. I had so much to write for that one. I sure did. And yes, we can have more than one of these wounds. Of course we can. I like TD. TD, you've put radical acceptance. That definitely is something to keep in mind and to take seriously. Radical acceptance. Yep. Sometimes we have to. It can be really difficult to get to that place. And also radical self-compassion. Fierce compassion. Sometimes we have to take that route. But here, looking at guilt, the inner talk is I've done something wrong. I have done something wrong. I have made a mistake that is unforgivable. I am unforgivable. Okay, because guilt means you've done something wrong. You're guilty. What are you guilty of? What did you do? Well, sometimes we need to own our wrongs and things that we have done. So there is a level of healthy guilt, but then there's a level of unhealthy guilt. And this is the one that I'm talking about. I see David Tomes has come into the chat. Thanks for watching the live, David. So you're constantly going around feeling like you've done something wrong, and you might be one of those people who's saying sorry to everything. Oh, sorry. Oh, I'm sorry. Oh, sorry. You feel like you're always the one apologizing for things. No one seems to be apologizing to you, though. You probably are waiting for a lot of people to say sorry. Well, that goes back up to our injustice wound, right? Waiting on apologies. If they would only say they were sorry, then I would feel better. No, you wouldn't. Trust me. Your wounds are not going to be healed by somebody just giving you an apology. It feels nice in the moment, but your wound is still there. So the guilt wound is often brought on by having emotionally unstable and or cold caregivers. People who made you feel like you were always making mistakes. People who made you feel like you could never do anything right. People who made you feel like everything was always your fault. You just felt that way. all the time. And maybe not in childhood. Maybe this could have arisen in an intimate relationship that you entered into like in your 20s and it developed. Or any time in your life for that matter, but we're most influential in the earlier years. And your inner child is going around thinking they've done something wrong. And are you telling them that they haven't? No, you're telling them, yeah, you know what? You have done something wrong and you're not okay and people aren't going to like you for it. So you better cut that out. So there's the always apologizing, feeling responsible for other people's feelings. And that certainly is a very highly empathic thing that we do, but it's not healthy. You know, I am not responsible for the way you feel. If I've set a boundary with you and you got pissed off at me because I didn't feel like, you know, leaving the house tonight and I wanted to have a night in, and you said that I'd never let you have any fun and I'm such a horrible person, and you're all angry now, and I make myself feel responsible for your anger. It's my fault that you're angry. There's the guilt wound. There's the guilt wound at play, which is why people pleasing is the way to overcompensate. The way to not feel guilty is to just give everyone what they want. Just tell them what they want to hear, be who they want me to be, so I don't have to feel bad about who I am. And Carl's saying even without any feedback, you're just feeling like it's your fault. Exactly. Because earlier on, that was ingrained in you. That if somebody was upset or angry, then it was your fault. I am responsible for other people's feelings. Yeah, and forgiving people for things that are unforgivable. So how do we heal this? Well, developing healthy emotional boundaries, for one. This is actually not my fault. I am actually not responsible for this. Wow, what a weight off my shoulders to learn about emotional boundaries. And if I am feeling this guilt, I now know how to give myself compassion. Because my little child that's over there thinking they've done something wrong, hey, you've done something wrong. This person is angry with you. Yeah, we better make it up to them. We better not talk that way to them ever again. No. Would you have your child come up to you and say, oh my gosh, I feel so bad. I didn't want to play with my friend and they made me feel like it was all my fault, but really I just wasn't feeling well and I just wasn't up to it. How would you respond to your little kid? Would you tell them, too bad, you just got to go and play with them anyway? You're responsible for how they felt. That was your fault. Yeah. You know what I mean? Like, we would never talk to our kid like that. But some of our parents would speak to us that way, and so we learn that that's how we speak to ourselves. And so we do that. So it's important to know the difference between healthy guilt and unhealthy guilt. Knowing the difference between the times when we actually have done something wrong and the times that we haven't. Okay? Not apologizing for things that aren't your fault. Let's go to the next one. Let's go to the next one. We've got abandonment. The abandonment wound. Why do I have it like that? Okay. abandonment. There we go. Everyone leaves me. Everyone is just going to leave me anyway. No one is really here to stay. No one is really that committed to me, so I'm not going to be that committed to anyone else either. That could be one way of seeing it. And how do we land ourselves there? Well, because we've been abandoned by caregivers, or we experienced divorce, or we experienced death of a loved one, or we were adopted. And we have this abandonment wound from the day realized we were adopted. Somebody abandoned us, didn't want us anymore. People just leave me anyway. But what might happen as an overcompensating skill here is that you'll just stay with anyone. You'll stay in toxic relationships. Because why? You don't want to be the one to abandon someone else. I could never abandon anyone. I have such loathing for people who abandon others that I would never be like that, no matter what. I will never abandon you. No matter how unhealthy and disrespectful you're treating me. I pride myself on sticking it out, even when it's hard. Yeah, right? So it's either that, staying in those unhealthy relationships because I don't want to be the one to abandon anyone. I'm not going to be that person. And how dare you if you abandon me, you're a horrible person. And sometimes we might set ourselves up to be abandoned because that's the energy you're carrying with you. That's the energy your inner child is carrying. That is what they are saying. Everyone leaves us. So let's just choose someone who's probably going to leave us anyway. We will choose a partner who is emotionally unavailable. They're emotionally unavailable anyway. Good. They're already somewhat abandoning me. Perfect. It's what I'm used to. Okay, so the thing here, the reason why we're bringing up all of these wounds is because we want to become conscious of them. It's not so much that we want to relieve them or remove them. They may always be there, but we got to just have the conscious awareness of them so we can mitigate the harm that we're doing to ourselves. We're mitigating the harm to that wound. We're not making it worse. Like, how about we don't make it worse? Okay? That's the whole thing with all of these wounds. Is if I'm having an injustice wound, how about I don't make that worse for myself? I already have an injustice wound. So how about we don't go trying to cure all the world's problems that we can't cure, making us feel injustice 10 times more? How about we don't do that? How about we set a boundary for ourselves in this wound that we're carrying around? How about if we are going to go and advocate for human rights and animal rights, that we do so with the awareness of our injustice wound so it's not going to further cause us harm? Just like the abandonment wound. How about we become aware that this is the reason why we're doing this? So sometimes we're avoiding relationships because people just leave anyway, so why bother? I'm just not even going to go into it. Or we abandon ourselves. We abandon ourselves. Like, we're already abandoning ourselves when we're in relationships with other people who aren't good for us and we stay. But we can also abandon ourselves through addictions, by not taking care of our health. Like, if we're falling ill to health issues, it could be seen as a form of self-abandonment. Like, your body is just succumbing to this belief in your mind. Everyone leaves me. Like, I'm a failure. If you've got the guilt wound on top of it, because remember, you're going to have more than one wound happening here. Your physical body is going to have a response to that. Your physical body is going to feel very disconnected from you. like almost dissociated. Like even your body is abandoning you. Even your physical well-being, your emotional spirit has abandoned you. You've allowed that to happen. Okay, so what I need you to keep in mind as we go through all of these wounds is that I want you to love them. Like your little child comes up to you and says, but everyone leaves me, but you say to them, but I won't. I'm not going to leave you. I'm going to be here for you. I'm going to be here to love you and accept you. And I'll never abandon you. I'll never do things to us that harm us. I will never put us in situations where our safety is at risk. I'm not going to do that anymore. Okay, that's now taking responsibility. And we're going to be seeking secure relationships with people. Or we're just going to be seeking a secure relationship with ourselves. We're also not going to become overly attached to people just because we have a fear of them leaving us. And that self-acceptance is huge. What is the feeling of contrast? Follow 33. I don't think contrast is a feeling as much as it is a psychological state, to be in the state of contrast. Like you'd have to maybe follow up a little bit more. What is the contrast? Like if you're looking for what is the contrast of abandonment, what is the opposite of abandonment? It's acceptance. It's secure attachment. Christophe. Yeah, I'll put a link here for you, Christophe. 1 second. It's often in my YouTube page, you know, where you go for like the more info. You can see it there. But I don't offer just one-off sessions. I need to just let you know that. I don't let people come to work with me just for one session. Because personally, I feel like that's a disservice and that's not being responsible. If people come to work with me, they have to be committed to like 3 months of working with me. So you got to be up for it. You got to be up for the commitment. But I just put it in the chat there for you if you wanted to sign up for that. Okay. And I mean, I can tell you the other options. If we have a little conversation, we have a little discussion first, I can tell you what's up, what's available. Okay. All right. Let's move on to the next wound here. We go to rejection. Oh, rejection wound. Yep. Bruce, are you still there? Are you telling me that you're ticking off this box too? I know you've been telling me you've been ticking them all off. We were talking what is the opposite of abandonment, and TD, you think it's love. Yeah, but love stemming from what? You know, and for me, I think it's love stemming from self-acceptance and self-compassion. Okay, Bruce, yeah, you got the rejection too? Well, you know, you're laughing about it over there. Either we laugh or we cry, right? Yeah, the self-talk here is no one will accept me. No one will accept me for, I'm unacceptable. The way I am is deemed, you know, not acceptable to mainstream. People won't like me. I'm unacceptable. People don't like me. People don't accept me. But look, you got your little Bruce over there who's like, no one will accept me. And what do you want to say to your little Bruce? You want to say, yeah, buddy, it's hard times. No one's accepting you. No one's accepting me either. Look, you gotta suck it up. You know, like, that's sometimes how we talk to ourselves. That's sometimes what we say. But it could be comforting for your little Bruce to know that it's okay. We don't need to be accepted, actually. Who fed us that lie? You must be accepted by all. No, actually, a little rejection, it's good for you. What's that saying? Rejection is God's protection. Yeah. It's cliche. It's surface talk. It's like, all right, well, what else do you got to say about rejection? The cause of rejection. It comes from parental rejection. Wow, surprise, surprise. Surprise, surprise. Our parents rejected us. Maybe we were the black sheep. Maybe we were the scapegoat. But maybe we were also rejected by our peers at some point. Maybe our parents were fully accepting of us, but every time we get around those pesky kids at school, they'd always have some way to reject us. And mom would always say, oh, but you're so kind and gentle. Don't pay attention to what those kids say. She would always try her best. But you'd always still feel the rejection every time. Maybe there was some favoritism by teachers that always, maybe you were loved by your parents and you were loved by all your peers, but the teachers, for some reason, gosh. Or you try to play sports. I know, Bruce, you're making a reference to baseball, but actually, what if you loved baseball with all your heart and you sucked at it, and your coach never let you go up to bat ever? You're just always sitting on the bench where you're always picked last, but you loved the sport, but you sucked. Yeah, schoolyard crush. Yeah, how do you like that, eh? But TD, I like what you say. We're knowing that we are loved by the universe. Yeah, we will get there, We will always feel rejection, okay? If you have a rejection wound, remember, it's not going away. But just know that you've got it. Just tend to it. Just give it some love, give it some care. Sailor Mike, you made it into the chat. Welcome, welcome. Sailor Mike is always on the go. Always on the go with some excursions. Wonder what you were up to today. I feel like you're living in the 1920s over there, Sailor Mike. I feel like you live on a pioneer Mennonite kind of land. Is that just sounds nice. I think you have a lovely lifestyle. Anyway, we're talking about inner child wounds today as it's step 4 in the 8 steps of personal transformation. And we're talking about the inner wound of rejection that can stem from many things. But it makes us very sensitive to criticism. Okay? So a telltale sign that you've got the rejection wound is that you cannot take criticism well at all. You get very defensive. And you might know somebody in your life that is like this. Okay? So keep that in mind. If you got people in your life that can't take criticism, are highly defensive, they're operating from the rejection wound. Okay? They were rejected. They feel like people won't accept them. So the second you want to give them some criticism, they're like, see, I'm unacceptable. I can't do anything right. I suck. It gets them. But if you're that person who has this wound and you know that you're somebody who gets defended, just own it. You know what I mean? Be like, there it was. That was my rejection wound that got all defensive there. And we can make amends to it. We can do that. We can say, actually, what you had to say was very helpful, actually. I think I need to take some time to think about what you said. We might understand that at first we can't conceive of feedback from people. But once we bring our little inner child over, we can say, well, let's just see if there was any truth to that we can learn from. Is there anything there? What can we take from this? And we can certainly seek help from professionals. I think sometimes when people have a fear of rejection, no one will accept me. It's also I can't change. I'm just forever this way and there's something wrong with me and this, I can't. No one will want to help me. No one will want to accept me. No one will want to help me with this. They'll think I'm just ridiculous. Well, that's what you're saying. So seeking help from professionals when you got a rejection wound might be something that you're not really doing. And maybe you want to consider it. And making peace with yourself. And forgiving yourself. And having a level of understanding for yourself. How many have we gone through yet? I think we've gone through 4. We still got 4 more wounds to go through. Let's see what's happening in the chat. Yeah, it is a 1920s lifestyle. Okay, I figured such, I just had this vision. Sailor Mike is a little bit of a deceiving image for me because I just imagine you on a sailboat. But you're more of a farmer than a sailor. You should change it to Farmer Mike. Or Tractor Mike, or, yeah. Yeah, so we're talking about these wounds, and it's one thing to have the wound. It's another thing to recognize you have the wound, and then it's even another thing to own the wound and love the wound. And show up for the wound. And let other people know about your wound. And that you're not going to put your wound on them. That you're going to take responsibility for your wound. Meanwhile, Sailor Mike has 3 sailboats. 31-footer. Wow. Yeah, you really are a Sailor Mike. And a Farmer Mike. You're just an all-around Mike. You're an everyday Miker's Mike. Okay. Oh, Bruce, the dominant eye thing. Yeah, we're coming back to that, eh? Yeah, if your left is the dominant, you're going to stand and you're going to hit you're going to be a right hand. So I bet you most people, because most people would swing standing with their left to the side, which means they got a left dominant eye. Yeah. Interesting. But I think if you were left-handed, you might have a right dominant eye. I wonder about this theory. I feel like left dominant eye is the more popular one. I feel like the dominant eye relates to the opposite hand. Yeah, if you're right-handed, you would have a dominant left eye. If you were left-handed, you would have a dominant right eye. Any lefties out there that are watching? You know what I'm talking about? And you have a dominant right eye. A way to decide this would be if you were to go into a classroom, where would you choose to sit? On the left side or the right side? Maybe you guys have never thought about this before. These are things that I think about all the time. Stuff that goes on in my head. Nothing to do with connecting with your feelings or identifying your inner child wounds, but if you've come to my lives before, you know that sometimes we divert because we're divergent creatures over here. Sometimes we go off topic. Yeah. Oh, David Tomes, dispelling my theory. Right-handed and right eye dominant. Okay, David. Thank you for contributing to my experimental evidence. Yes, okay. Right-handed and right eye dominant. Okay. Interesting. I wonder if there's any research out there about this. I'll have to research later. We do not consent, 303. What are we talking about? We're talking about step 4 in we were talking about the dominant eye thing that has nothing to do with what today's live is all about. We were on a little bit of a digression there. But for those of you that are just joining, I'm going to go back for a moment to a previous screen. This is what we're talking about today. Every Friday, I've been going live talking about the 8 steps to personal transformation. So you'll see these lives saved in the live tab. And the first week, we talked about being able to have a vision. Where is it? What is your transformation going to look like? What do you think? What do you imagine? Where is it you want to go? Sometimes people have no vision, and so it can make it very difficult to move to the next step. which is addressing limiting beliefs. What is in the way of your vision? Yeah, it might be the reason why you don't know where you're going is because you're limited in your mindset to understand your capabilities and capacities. What is in the way? There's a shadow. We need to move them out of the way. The third step to personal transformation is identifying the gaps in your thinking. Knowing the way you're thinking now versus the way you need to be thinking in order to reach the next leg in your journey. What is that new way of thinking that you have to adopt? And in order to get through to that other side, you got to connect to your feelings. You got to connect to the inner child, because what blocks are there that are holding you back? And in today's live, we are looking at the feelings, the inner child wounds, based on, go back up to the wheel, based on the inner child wheel that I developed, which has all the wounds inside, the corresponding behaviors in the green. And the outer rim is how to overcome these things. So we already talked about the injustice wound. And if we're having a hard time getting through to the other side, we might be stuck with the limiting belief that we don't deserve to be treated fairly for some reason or another, or people are not treating me fairly, or the reason why I can't get through to what it is that I want is because the world isn't fair. So that might be your ego. Well, it is your ego that's in the way, and it's your wounded inner child that needs to be spoken to and comforted in a different way, to let them know, hey, there's a whole lot of things that we're not in control of, but what are we in control of? Then we have the guilt wound. And so if you're going around thinking you've done something wrong and you can't get anything right, well, that's going to hold you back from getting to the next level. If you're always apologizing, if you're people pleasing, if you're meeting everyone else's needs but your own, this is going to be your obstacle. This is going to be the wound that you have to start to heal. Then we talked about abandonment and rejection. We went through those. Everyone leaves me. Why bother starting something? It's just going to fail. It's not going to work. It's going to fall apart. Why bother starting something if I can't finish it? No one will accept me on this journey. If I actually do what it is that I want to do, now no one's going to accept me for it. People are going to reject me if I actually take this next leg in my journey. Oh, well, so let them. Okay? So let them. And this is the making peace with yourself that you have to go through. All right, we've got, how many more? We've got shame, judgment. Oh, we only got two more. Oh, is there one more under here? And neglect. Okay, we got three more. Three more wounds to discuss. Yes. We're looking at shame here. Dragona, you are a little late, but guess what? I don't always start at a particular time. No. I just kind of start on Friday. Usually it's afternoon and before 5. So here we are at almost 5 o'clock now. Michael, you like to sit in the front. Yeah, I like to be a front sitter also. Sometimes I like to be in the back though, because I like to have a full view of the whole room. You know, how many of you are like that as well? Like, the other day I went to sit in a doctor's office and I sat in the furthest corner so that I could see the whole layout. You know? I don't know. And it was also with the left eye dominant thing. You know, if I'm in dance class, then yes, I need to be in the front row because I can't have people in the way. But sometimes depends on the layout of the room. Sometimes I don't like to have people behind me. It's nice when they have circular tables. If there's a circular table, then I'll sit at the front on the right side. Anyway, just a random topic that has nothing to do with connecting with our feelings, but I saw Michael comment about sitting in the front, and so, yeah. let me just go through these comments here first before we carry on with this next part. One moment. Because I'm in no rush over here, and I just wanna, what am I doing? Hide this one. Okay. Let me go to what you guys are saying. Bruce, cover one eye and look at an object at a distance. Put a finger over the object. Put a finger over the object. Yeah. If the object moves, that's your less dominant eye. If it doesn't move, what do you mean if it moves? I don't understand about the moving thing. People tuning into this live must think like, what the heck is going on? I'll have to look at it again. Oh boy. And David, you're right. Healing inner child wounds is not a quick fix. It's because, you know, to heal them means to just become aware of them and to accept them and give them love. You know, that's the journey of the wound, is living with the wound. I mean, I could say, you know, I didn't even write healing your inner child wounds. I wrote identifying them, you know? We want to identify the wound. Because once you can name it, then you can work with it. Because it might not ever be fully healed, and that's okay. Yeah, the patience, like you said, David, is huge. And when you celebrate small successes, that is you giving yourself compassion, which is the outer rim of that wheel. It's the biggest thing is self-compassion. Not a lot of people know what that is. They think self-compassion is self-pity. But it's the complete opposite. TD, not taking things personally. Yeah, it's hard. You have to just know that you have a tendency sometimes to take things personally. And then you start to catch yourself when you've done that, so that you can give yourself compassion and maybe give the other person compassion too, that you took it personally from. Jamie Rodriguez, you're in the back corner. But what side of the room? On the left or the right? You guys are missing the sides. Yeah, back to the wall, Sailor Mike? Yeah. Yeah. Like, what if you entered a room that had the U shape? It was like a U shape. You know, some people were facing the left wall, some people were facing the right wall, and then some people were just facing straight forward, you know? It was like that. Where would you sit in the U? For me, I'd want to be like in the back center. You know why? Because I don't like having to like sit there and look at somebody at the front of the room with my neck crick my neck the whole time. Be like, why do I gotta keep turning? I'd have to like have my chair like this. But then the person beside me wouldn't be able to see, you know? They'd be like, hey, what are you doing with your chair? They're like that. All right, Bruce. I'll try and figure out the whole eye thing. I'll try and figure that out later. Tom, welcome to the chat, Tom. You really started to progress when you got to know your parents as an adult and understood more. Yeah. You know, we can blame a lot of things on our parents because the inner child work seems to blame it all on our upbringing. Oh, my wounded inner child. Who harmed my inner child? Who cares who really harmed your inner child? At this point, it doesn't matter. Are you the one who's still harming your own inner child? That's what we want to look at. You know? It's like, am I the one who's being critical to my inner child and abandoning them and rejecting them and guilting them? Am I doing all that to myself now? Because that's what I'm in control of. I wasn't in control of everyone else. doing those things to me, but now I am in control whether or not I choose to do that to myself. All right, let's get back over here to these other wounds. Carry on with our good learning. Did I have, did we do betrayal? What happened to betrayal? Where did it go? I feel like we missed it. Hold on. Justice, guilt, abandonment, rejection. Well, we're gonna have to go back to betrayal after a while. I knew we were missing one. Okay. So we've got the shame here. And what is shame saying to us? Shame is saying something's wrong with me. And if something is wrong with me, it's probably because somebody did something to me to make me feel like I was unworthy, like I could be exploited or taken advantage of, or someone was very overly critical. H. Holt, welcome to the live there. Does shame lead to grief? For me, grief is a process. What stage of grief are you in? You know, 5 stages of grief. Who knows what the 5 stages of grief are? We can write them in there. And so we would be grieving ourselves for all of these different wounds, okay? Michael Fee, awareness is exhausting. Or it could be liberating. Just depends how you look at it. Is it exhausting or is it liberating? Maybe first it's exhausting and then it's liberating. But if you guys know what these 5 stages to grief are, the first stage is denial. That's the first stage. So you might be in denial of these wounds, okay? If we just consider them all as one. Denial, and then there's anger. And the anger is kind of being pissed off that I got this wound. And there's the bargaining. How can I get rid of this wound? What could I have done if something didn't happen to me, I would have never had this wound. It's these other, right? These other things. After bargaining, sadness. Okay, I'm sad that I have this wound. Like, this is ruining my life. I'm hopeless. I'm always going to be this way. There's like the apathy that's with the grief. And then finally we get to acceptance. Okay, that's the final one. But what leads to the fear? Okay, what is it that leads to the fear? There's something even deeper that leads to the fear. Some sort of inadequacy, some sort of sadness. Yeah, inadequacy, not knowing how to respond. Oh, that's a quote from Yoda, is it? Fear leads to anger, anger leads to hate, and hate is the path to the dark side. Well, it's not to say that the dark side is the bad side. There's lots to be learned from the dark side. Yoda. Yoda needs to come to my coaching program. I would have lots to pick his brain about. So when we look at the shame, something is wrong with me. And can I learn to accept the things that seem to be wrong with me, you know? It's like there's nothing wrong with me. But in the meantime, we might be going out people pleasing. We might be having that anger and resentment because it seems like everybody else is perfect. I'm the only one who has this problem of shame. I'm the only one who feels this unworthiness of love. And I might, isolate myself in self-pity for quite a while. Stay in that sadness. Or I might be in that self-pity with anger. Until I learn that I matter. And I learn that I can take care of my own needs. And I learn how to set healthy boundaries for myself and that nothing is wrong with me. I have self-compassion. I feel worthy of love. And I'm comfortable in social settings. So this is removing the mask of people pleasing, okay? Because if you're someone who's sitting with shame, you're probably wearing a mask. Because I can't let people see the real me. I can't let people see what's underneath this. Because then there's that rejection, that will come. And I don't want to have the rejection. So this is a huge journey towards unmasking yourself, to just allowing yourself to be your true self. Nothing is wrong with me, actually. It's just believing the lies that everyone was telling me that something was wrong with me, but there wasn't. We like the opposites, don't we, TD? Betrayal. You say the opposite of betrayal would be loving without fear of the future. So it would be having faith. Be having faith. Yeah, that's it. When we're talking about these inner child wounds, it's all about integrating our shadow. It's like, wow, I've got this shame, and I've maybe been putting this shame on other people. And certainly have been putting it on myself. But how have I been maybe as a result also shaming others? And how has that been impacting my relationships? The next one we've got is judgment. This one's huge, we judge ourselves, we judge other people more than we even realize. You can say you're a non-judgmental person. Even the most non-judgmental person judges, But this is the thing, is catching yourself in your judgment instead of letting it get away from you. And that's what I have to say about all of these wounds, is you just are able to catch them all without them getting away from you and accepting them and loving them. So when we have a judgment wound, we're constantly thinking what other people think about us. What will people think? What will that person think? And we're probably also judging others. So we're probably not going to reach our next level of transformation because, what will somebody think about me if I quit my job? Or what will someone think about me if I want to break up with them? Or what will someone think about me if I want to take up this new hobby? Or if I want to change my whole lifestyle? Or if I want to move? Or whatever it is that I want to do with my life. I'm not doing it because I'm worried about what other people will think about me. And this is rooted in having a lifetime of harsh judgment and criticism. And it could have been from anyone. Again, a parent, a teacher, a family member, your siblings. Or you could have been witness to harsh judgment towards others. Like you were never judged directly, but you just saw it happen. You're like, oh boy, I don't ever want to have that happen to me. I don't ever want to be judged. So, sorry, I was looking at the comments there. Holt, you've got some more stuff to say. I'll come back to it after I get through these. How do we overcompensate with our judgment wound? You're going to know if you have a judgment wound because similar to the injustice wound, you know, you're strictly following rules and laws to a T, and you might have really rigid boundaries. You probably judge yourself before others even can judge you. And you're probably criticizing other people's flaws, mistakes, and shortcomings. But that's the mirror. I think someone had said in the chat already, the mirror, right? So that's the mirror of judgment in yourself. Watch out for your own judging of others, because that's the mirror of your own judgment. And so again, we just catch it. We catch it, we notice it. We don't judge our judging. We don't judge our judging. Do we got one more? I think I left off the betrayal. Oh, we have neglect. We have the neglect wound. I'll go to the betrayal wound in a moment, but the neglect is just, no one cares. No one cares, so why would I care? No one cares. You probably don't really have a connection with your inner child because they don't think you care. They're like just doing their own thing. They're like, who are you? Why do you care about me now? A little late, don't you think? The damage is already done. Okay, you're gonna have some low expectations and standards in any relationship. And don't expect anything from me either. And I let a whole bunch of things slide. I don't really take care of my own needs, and I don't care if other people take care of my needs either. The sarcasm, you see? The sarcastic and serious situations because of this neglect. They just never had their basic needs met. They don't know what they're supposed to be, and the emotional unavailability. So this one, people would really need to spend a lot of time with this neglect wound. A lot of time connecting with their inner child. It's going to take a long time before their inner child is going to start to open up to them. And it might feel really uncomfortable to be around emotionally available people. But you see, the next step after this, after you've identified your inner child wounds, is identifying your own needs, like connecting to your higher self. And in order to connect to your higher self, you need to connect to your inner child. You need to connect to these wounds that need to be healed. So that takes time. Like, you know, you guys in the chat have been saying, be patient with this. This is not easy stuff. The first step to any change is awareness. And I know that someone's saying awareness is exhausting. And it is, because you're doing something that's going to lead to some greatness. You know, without the awareness, you can't change anything. You just stay ignorant. And for some people, they might say ignorance is bliss. And so then by all means, right? So H. Holt, you had a question, how about identifying triggers in people? The type of coaching that I do, if I was working with you and you asked me that question, I would tell you that the triggers are not in other people. They're in yourself. And they're not aiming to maintain a codependency with you. You are aiming to have a codependency with them. So long as you think that they are a trigger to you, then you are codependent to them. They establish and deem your own self-worthiness. And David, you know, it's true. A lot of us will abandon ourselves. We will hide from these wounds by using as you said, intoxicants for many years at a time. And that's also part of the healing. Like I will never heal these wounds so long as I am abandoning myself through the use of substances. And the day that I show up for myself and start to no longer numb myself from that pain, those wounds can be really painful, but what's more painful is the neglect of those wounds over time. So the sooner you can start to show up for them, the easier they will be to live with. Yeah, TD, I'd say that judgment does come from fear as well. Judgment comes from that fight or flight response. But when we tell our nervous system that we're safe, that we're okay, that there's no threat, then the judgment usually subsides. It's like, oh, okay, yeah, doesn't matter then, who cares? Yeah, TD, there's a saying, when you blame others, you will suffer the most. Something like that. Those who blame others suffer the most. So neglect and abandonment are different shades of the same thing. Let's take a look. Neglect is no one cares. Yeah, and abandonment is everybody just leaves. Yeah, they are. They are. What would be the difference? Let's go up to the wheel. Let's go up to the wheel. Show this one. Abandonment is going to have an anxious attachment, and it might stay in toxic relationships. Neglect is in unhealthy relationships and is unable to advocate for their own needs. So the difference there between the abandonment and the neglect is the abandonment might be expecting other people to take care of their own needs, where the neglect is not taking care of their own needs and not expecting anyone else to either. There's a complete abandonment of their own needs. But yeah, there's for sure a connection there. And the other one, I don't know why it didn't show up in my list there, is it says mistrust on the wheel, but betrayal wound is more accurate. I just haven't gone in to change that. Betrayal wound. Again, I would say the betrayal, the abandonment, and the neglect, I mean, all of these are all very tied together. And if someone is operating in a state of anger, if you're angry, you've got these wounds that you're ignoring that need love. If you're angry, it's likely that your shame wound needs some love. Your neglect wound needs some love. Your guilt wound needs some love. And that's what self-compassion is. And how do you learn self-compassion? Well, that's not an easy thing to learn when it hasn't been modeled for you, when maybe you haven't seen that in your life before. Yeah, Bruce, I hear you, right? Like, it can be very confusing. That's why, like, we have to surround ourselves with secure people to model this for us, because the confusion can be disorienting in our adult life. And so we need something that's an anchor. We need something that's going to ground us into the reality, the true reality of what is real. And David, if you're somebody who's come out of, overcoming addictions, a lot of times we will be spending a lot of time alone as a result, for the most part, especially neurodivergent people, because the way that you could be social before was by using substances. And would you blame it on social anxiety? Or was it more of a social sensitivity? Like, I just don't quite like the word anxiety. Anxiety is a fear. It comes from the root emotion of fear. And so what is it that you're really afraid of? Well, being yourself, being judged, being shamed. What could it be? What is the fear? Crying, you bet, TD. Some people have come to work with me who haven't cried in years. And we start to do this inner child work. We start to do the inner practices, the inner sizes, where I guide them through connecting with their inner child. And they cry. And they're like, I haven't cried in a long time. That felt really good. And I remember coaching this one gentleman who had been in combat. So he had very serious PTSD and he was sitting with a lot of guilt. And we did an exercise in inner child. I think we did 2. And he got to a point in the program, he's like, I don't need to see you anymore. That's all I needed. Like, you took care of something for me. I just needed to cry. I've been trying to cry forever and nothing works. I try to watch the sad movies. It doesn't, So I got him crying, which will happen for people when we do that inner child exercise, that connective exercise. And I warned them, go get your tissues, because otherwise you're going to be using your shirt. But it's so healing. It absolutely is. It's releasing. What's in your tears is salt. Salt is very healing of a substance. You're releasing that. Isn't crying such an interesting thing? The tears come out. I mean, you can cry when you cut an onion, but that's not the same. That's not the same as busting a few blood vessels in your eyeballs. Oh boy. So yeah, David, you're just looking at the fear, right? Yeah, fear of not being accepted. So you go to the wound of neglect or betrayal or abandonment. What do we see when we go back to these ones? Maybe even shame, though. Not being accepted. Yeah, something's wrong with me. I feel like it's a shame wound. The shame is maybe holding you back from connecting. Yeah, it leads to self-isolation. That's where you are. This is a shame wound. Learning self-compassion. And being comfortable to take your mask off. Being comfortable to just show up as you are. And that will happen as you give compassion to yourself. Because a lot of, if we're struggling with having to show up to places and we're not comfortable with who we are, we have to imbibe in substances to fit in, well, hell, how's it going to be like showing up to these social events now just clean and sober, and you're just your somber self? You don't got to be the life of the party. You don't got to be a chatterbox. You don't, people will be like, what's wrong with you? You're not talking. No, I've just kind of settled down in my old age, while they're all sitting there ordering another round. I don't know. I don't know what your circumstances are, David, but that's just what comes to mind. Yeah, the tears are a great release, wonderful release. So that's where we're at in today's live. We've covered all those wounds. And what I can say is just to acknowledge them, take note of those stages of grief. Because you might be in denial of the wound, and then you might be angry that you got that freaking wound. You might be wishing you didn't have it and blaming everyone else for the reason why you have these things going on now. And then you get real sad about it and you cry about it. You release that emotional sensation that is so necessary to take you into that next step. And that crying is, it's not pity, it's compassion for yourself. Stepping in as a loving adult for yourself and your little you that's over there in the corner crying. You cry together. And then you move into a state of acceptance. And just like we heard in the chat earlier, sometimes that acceptance has to be a radical state of acceptance. Because the next step that we go to is identifying your personal needs. That's going to be next week. What are your needs? Okay, so if you're sitting there with the shame wound, what is it that you need? What is it that your inner child over there is saying, listen, in order for us to deal with the shame wound, this is what we need to do. This is what's important to us. And identifying our needs is going to sound very different for everyone. We'll be getting into that next week. But for now, before we sign off, I'm just going to take some time in the chat if anyone has any other questions. Lone wolves never die. You got that right, Bruce. Yeah, and guess what, David? Sometimes, thanks for the donation, David. I appreciate that. If something feels safer, where am I? I'm just going back up. I think I lost where you were talking about. Avoiding social interaction is safer. But it's like standing on the shore of the river of life, watching everything pass by without you. Now, it's okay to do things that are safer for you, because that's probably going to be what's revealed in step 5 of your personal transformation next week. Is I'm allowed to choose things that are safe, that feel safe for me right now. Because otherwise you bring in the guilt wound. Because you're saying, oh, it's like everything's passing by without me. So there's that to overcome next, right? It's like, is everything just passing by without me, or is it passing by with me? I am still a part of everything that exists. Whether I am directly part of it or I am indirectly part of it. What feels safe for my nervous system? Because maybe you've been a big risk taker in your day, David. I don't know. Maybe you've done a lot of things that were not safe in your life. And to do this now feels wrong for some reason. Again, something is wrong with me. Why can't I just connect with people like everyone else can do? You know, everything is just passing by without me. No, but maybe what's happening is you are not passing yourself by anymore. You're not ignoring your own needs and what your nervous system needs right now, which is to feel safe. And you're doing that for yourself. All right, Bruce is hearing the message too. Yep. Okay. Like, I think the biggest takeaway is just to love your wounds, okay? To respect them. Give them a lot of freaking respect. And TD, a lot of us unlearn how to emote along the way. The battery that occurs on the human journey is a tough world with other wounded, hurting, lonely children. Everyone has a child within them. Absolutely. Unlearning how to emote, I think perhaps a lot of us were emoting way too much. And so to kind of like take it back a little bit and not be so emotive all the time seems like a regression, but maybe you can think of it as actually a calibration. Okay? Maybe you were too overage before, and now to come back seems like you've lost something, but what you've done is actually balanced and regulated yourself, right? We have to recognize that what's at the core of all of this healing is of our nervous system. And if our nervous system doesn't feel safe, it's going to do a lot of crazy ass things. Because it's been living a crazy ass life. Because it's been in very chaotic environments for a very long time, to the point where that just feels normal, but it's not. And the nervous system gets worn out and it gets exhausted. And it thinks, why can't I just carry on doing everything that I've been doing? I'm slowing down so much. I'm isolating so much. I'm really stepping back so much. No, you're regulating yourself now. That's actually normal for you to do. So I want you to consider that. Yeah, TD, the child learns to ignore and self-soothe. Exactly. There's nothing wrong with that. To step back. And if that's what you end up doing for the last half of your life, then so be it. Allow yourself to have the last half of your life, because the first half of your life, if not more, has just been ridiculous. So you're allowed to step back and totally be, in that non-action and a little or a lot less feeling. So David, Canadian Forces, wow. Yeah, exactly. Afghanistan, exactly. You were on a daily basis living in an unsafe environment. So no wonder. Okay? So exactly, you want to get to the point where next time you think that things are passing by without you, there's also the notion of let them. Just let them. Okay? I've lived so much now. It's time to step back and just watch it all by over there. I hope they're having a great time, Of course, TD. Aloha to you. Aloha to you. Cade Heart Scows. Welcome to the chat. Welcome in. You've just missed a bunch. I don't know how long you've been here, but we're about ready to wind it down. I've been going on, I guess, an hour and a half or so. I can't remember when I started this live today. Tom, are you still talking about where we chose to sit in a classroom? Is that still the same one here? That was like 20 minutes ago, half an hour ago in our chit chat, wasn't it? I've been streaming now for 2 hours. Yeah, we've been on this live for 2 hours. It's good. I'm glad, this 2-hour live is about the right time. It went by quick for me. It really did. And you guys are great in the chat. Coming into the chat and sharing with me your experiences really helps to expand this conversation. Because I'm just this talking head lady over here, I see your messages come on, but it's still just my voice that's talking, right? Bruce, you want to know how the generational factors play into all of these behaviors? They 100% do. These are wounds that are passed down. These are wounds. Feelings can be a learned state. Feelings can be a conditioned state. Okay, so if you are somebody who experienced racism, well, you got a long lineage in your DNA. Think of the epigenetics that we have to take into consideration. So, yeah. I could go into generational factors of it, but I like to just keep it simple because I'm not so much of a science lady over here. But just know that things are passed down, things are learned, things are passed on into our DNA, and we just got to notice things through our behavior. Our behavior informs us, our feelings inform us. And so we just got to learn how to take that seriously. Augustine, I'm sorry that you were late too. I don't always start these things right on time because I don't really have a time. There is no start time. It's just Friday at some time. So if you catch me, you catch me. Of course, my lives are saved, so you can always go back to watch. Yes, Lisa. They're in the live tab, and so will this one. Okay, we're going through all the steps. Thank you, Sailor Mike, for being here. Thank you, David. Appreciate all of you out there. And I'll see you back again on Friday. Friday, we're going to be digging into the needs. Let's just do a little review before we sign off. A little review, okay? These are the 8 steps to personal transformation that we're going through. The last 3 lives you can watch. The first one was having a vision. The second one was addressing your limiting beliefs. The third one was identifying the gaps in your thinking. Today we talked about connecting with your feelings. If you missed this live, you're going to want to go back and watch it from the start because we did a lot. Next Friday, I'll be back talking about how to identify your personal needs. Step 6 is establishing your personal boundaries. Step 7 is that expansion of your self and world view. That is like you have reached that transformational level. And then step 8 is just stepping back and acknowledging yourself and congratulating yourself, looking at the results. And then it starts all over again. Back to the vision. Okay? So this will be one to keep on hand. And thank you all. Until next time. Peace.